I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, a veteran of the United States Army Air Force and the Michigan Air National Guard, Lieutenant John Clark. During World War II, he served as co-pilot of a B-17 Flying Fortress as a member of the 100th Bomb Group in the vaunted 8th Air Force. As a member of the 8th Air Force, he completed 32 missions over Germany. Now, only a year earlier, the crew of the B-17 Memphis Belle was heralded for being the first B-17 crew to successfully complete 25 missions. To put his service in the proper context for the observance of this memorial service, it is important to note that the 8th Air Force suffered about half the United States Army Air Force. Half of the United States Army Air Force is 115,332 casualties, including more than 26,000 dead. To put this casualty rate in context, imagine every other person in this room as a casualty of war. The brave men of the 8th Air Force fighting on the frigid frontier of the European Theater Air War earned 17 Medals of Honor, 220 Distinguished Service Crosses, and 442,000 Air Medals. After the war, Lieutenant Clark went on to become Dr. Clark and Professor Emeritus of Mechanical Engineering at my alma mater, the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where he received his undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. He went on to earn his master's and doctorate degrees from MIT, where he served as faculty from 1949 to 1957. In 1957, he was appointed to the University of Michigan faculty as a professor of mechanical engineering. He later served as the department chairman for 2 terms. In 1945, he married Marie Mountain, who also served as an Air Force pilot in World War II, as a member of the Women's Air Force Service Pilots, affectionately referred to as a WASP. In 2001, his World War II memoir, An 8th Air Force Combat Diary, was published. Mrs. Clark, who passed away in 2008, published her own World War II memoir in 2005 in the book, Dear Mother and Daddy, World War II Letters from Home from a WASP. In 2015, Mrs. Clark, who is an Iowa native, was inducted into the Iowa Aviation Hall of Fame. And this past Saturday, Dr. Clark was inducted into the Michigan Aviation Hall of Fame. As you might imagine, I could go on and on speaking about his many achievements in service to our country, our state, and our community. But I, and sure many of you, would rather hear what he has on his mind. So without further ado, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. John Clark.
Thank you, Senator Colbeck. Pastor David Beetham, members of the armed forces and veterans, Senate members and invited guests, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to participate in your Memorial Day celebration this year. It is a great privilege and an honor to be here. Actually, this is the second time I have visited these chambers. The first time was 76 years ago in June 1940, when I was a delegate from Royal Oak High School to the Wolverine Boys State. At that time, as now, the world was in a state of crisis. World War II had begun the previous September. The French government had surrendered, and the invading German armies had driven the retreating British forces back to the coast of the English Channel at Dunkirk. This set the stage for the historic cross-channel evacuation of over 300,000 British troops. I was then 17 years old, and these events impressed me enormously. It was not long before I joined the thousands of other young Americans in military service with determination to defeat a totalitarian enemy that threatened our freedoms. Memorial Day is a special and unique national holiday. Unlike other holidays, which are devoted mostly to the celebrating the life of a selected person or to recognize some significant national event, Memorial Day is a time to remember with honor and appreciation the sacrifices of the many thousands of American men and women who have served in our armed forces. We especially honor those who have given their lives in defense of our nation. For this reason, then, this holiday becomes a day of personal remembrance and reflection for virtually every American. America is an exceptional country among the nations of the world. It is the land of freedom and opportunity. Like no other nation, America is the place to which people of the world want to immigrate. To become an American citizen is a cherished goal. Chiseled on the plaque at the Statue of Liberty are these words: "Give me your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." In America, a person is free to do anything that's peaceful. And should that peace be broken, it is the responsibility of government to reestablish peace. In America, citizens can achieve whatever their talents allow without the burden of custom or the interference of an intrusive bureaucracy. This is our country. This is America the Beautiful, from sea to shining sea. Deep within each human heart is a desire for the freedom to make individual decisions and to act on the basis of one's own choices, limited only by the restraints imposed by morality, ethics, and established law. This is self-evident. It requires no proof. This fundamental characteristic of humanity is revealed in the written record of history. The acceptance of the Magna Carta by King John of England in 1215, the declaration of the Scottish independence in 1320, the establishment of the Commonwealth of England itself in 1649, and the revolt of the American colonists in 1775, each signaled the creation of free and independent societies in these countries. Further, each of these events produced written documents guaranteeing certain rights to the people and established, once and for all, the supremacy of the rule of law. These documents, being permanent fixtures of a constitutional republic, have secured the freedom of the citizens of England, Scotland, and America for hundreds of years. However, a revolt does not always produce permanent freedom. A few years following the American Revolution, the French people also revolted against the monarchy. This revolt was spawned for the same reasons the American colonists rebelled against the British crown, namely, a yearning for freedom. The French people rallied around the cry, "Liberty, equality, fraternity." These three words, taken individually, are inspirational. Together, they become a slogan, and one having internal contradiction. Lacking the support of constitutional law, the French had to wait for nearly 100 years before they could achieve the political freedoms guaranteed a century before to the citizens of the United States. We can all be grateful for the wisdom of the Continental Congress for establishing our constitutional republic with our freedoms sanctioned by law, guaranteed by law, and supported by an executive and congressional representation elected by the people and under oath to uphold that law. It is also important to remember that our American form of representative government had developed from experiences the colonists had with tyranny and oppression. The Pilgrims who landed on the rock-bound coast of New England in 1620 had fled from the oppression of the English monarchy and the established Church of England. They came to these shores in search of political, economic, and religious freedom. In 1775, after more than 150 years of relatively peaceful living here, the colonists again encountered oppression from the English crown. You know the rest of the story. They rebelled against the crown. At Lexington and Concord, the Minutemen fired the first shots in the War for Independence, driving the British redcoats back to Boston. The poet, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, described the battle at the Concord Bridge in his epic poem, The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, in this way. The British regulars fired and fled. The farmers gave them ball for ball from behind each fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down the lane and only pausing to fire and load. This battle set the stage for the Declaration of Independence the next year, which included these historic words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. After defeating the British armies, the colonists established their own democratically organized republic, complete with a constitution and Bill of Rights, guaranteeing the religious and political freedoms that we have today. Since the colonists had suffered under religious and political oppression, it is little wonder that the First Amendment to their new Constitution provided for the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech and assembly. And the Second Amendment guaranteed the right of citizens to keep and bear arms. The signers of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were practical men of faith. They believed that human reason is capable of knowing and understanding the most enduring truths about human affairs. Because of their courage and wisdom, they were able to produce these fundamental documents that have been the foundation for freedom in America for the past 250 years. We ignore these at our own peril. In normal times, American interests are usually best served when its sword is sheathed. However, it is essential that America always have a sword, and one that is strong and sharp. We also must have both the will and the wisdom to use this sword whenever our liberty is threatened. Since the end of the Second World War, we have had many reminders that freedom isn't free, and that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. The American men and women who served in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marine in the Korean War, in Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria have met the challenges of these wars effectively and with courage, determination, and honor. We owe to each of those who served in these places great respect for their valor and sacrifices. Their families, too, deserve our gratitude for the sacrifices in those times of uncertainty and loneliness. As we honor these Americans, we can be guided by the signers of the Declaration of Independence, who pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to the cause of freedom. There is no better epitaph to this drama than the immortal words of Abraham Lincoln spoken at the Gettysburg battlefield in November 1863. From these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Thank you very much, and may God bless each of you, and God bless our country.